time for some more Champion Spring MVP, so let's take a look at the scoreboard, Papa Smithy. It's 2-0-7, and Score's your MVP.
And I'm just hoping it's time for more Jungle Graves. He definitely lived up to what we expected from Score. I saw the pick and solo queue. It made so much sense given his long history. Look at him saunter onto the Rift, looking cool, killing minions.
Wow, this is an epic montage of Graves shooting that silly Rift squatter right in his dumb face.
Shooting that silly Gnar in the face. Also didn't ult, didn't need to.
Right in his stupid Yordle face.
This was the nice knock-up train. And then Graves is like, I want this kill.
I would like this, please. That was totally necessary.
Oh dear.
He's like, no, my 100% kill contribution.
He was looking for an assist with the Graves ult, as you do. And then by the end, they could turret dive easily. They had Alistar, they had Poppy. Their front line was insane. Kalista was almost a non-factor. We noted that from the damage. Everyone else was eclipsing her.
I like Graves, such a badass, because he just casually reloads his shotgun like standing in the middle of a team fight these days. He's like, just give me a second, please.
Yeah, 9 other people are fighting, and he's like, just, I'm over here. His shotgun that it has 2 bullets, but apparently shoots 3 at the same time somehow.
Oh, it's buckshot, so it spreads.
Well, it's his auto attack now.
Yeah, I know, but it still is buckshot.
That's true. So it's what it's named. His passive is so confusing. It has like 3 parts to it now, but the champion is super cool to play. So it's good to see the most obvious fit ever. The immortal Score moves to the jungle. 80 carries become a thing, and guess what? He's pretty good at Kindred and Graves.
Yeah, it's an exciting time to be a Score fan here, as many people have been for years. He and Mad Life, the oldest continuously active players in Champions, going all the way back to the first Invitational before Champions even started.
And that's the thing, Score and Ambition both played in Season 1. Score was actually there longer than that, as you mentioned, in that preseason tournament. As well as her, I can hear the Korean casters, they're sad too, Graves' band.
It was a pretty impactful performance, and Samsung really trying to squeeze the jungle pool here. So ban Elise, KT, let's see what other champions are in the pools of Ambition and Score.
And even more so than last game, this is definitely Samsung saying, we would like a first pick Rek'Sai, please.
Or Lissandra. They have that opportunity available to them. We talked about it being QV's best champion so far this season, but they would have to shy away from the Poppy.
Corki did fine in terms of having some lane pressure. I was worried with Victor gone, there'd be no lane presence as Lissandra's banned, so it does again seem to suggest that Rek'Sai is the world's most obvious first pick and is taken. No Kindred, no Graves, no Elise. What's next for Score?
Nocturne. Clearlove did it, it's time.
I disagree. Another Clearlove champion makes more sense, Monty. It's time for Tank Jungle Rengar. Score special.
Will be Poppy Kalista most likely, or Poppy Alistar if you are KT Rolster.
There's a champion that Score actually played pretty well.
Yeah, he was actually probably the best jungle echo here in Korea.
Outside chance that we'll see that, but obviously doesn't make sense in this first round of the draft.
I really think they should just take the Poppy right now, because we saw how strong Someday was on that pick, and QV is good on it too, so you might as well deny him that and put him on something a little bit more awkward. Poppy Kalista, I think, is the way to go.
I think Poppy Alistar will be fine too for that knock-up duo, but
I'd rather have the Kalista, because you can still take the Thresh with Kalista and be okay.
It's fair.
So I think that tip pick takes a little bit of priority when both Alistar and Thresh are still available in the draft.
But the Poppy definitely needed to be taken in the first rotation. With the Sandra ban, QV would have insta-locked, or asked Ambition to insta-lock that champion. Okay, return to the Tristana, has that good laning matchup. I want to see the attack speed Tristana we saw out of, was it Prey, I believe, for the Rocks Tigers, going for the quick rush on the rapid fire cannon, and felt like Static Shiv Tristana from 2 years ago. That was actually Score that was playing the Static Shiv Tristana way back when.
Yeah, famously in the finals. It was a big part of the KT Bullets' early 2 wins against SK Telecom.
How did that series end?
It was actually a clean sweep for the KT Bullets, if I remember
properly.
Right. It certainly did not end with Ryu dueling Faker with 2 Zeds.
And was it wet for eSports that day too?
It was very wet for eSports that day. All right, well, Lee Sin probably going to be the lock here for Score as a kind of tertiary jungler.
We were speaking about this in the break. I've been watching Score's stream, and This man has been carrying hard, at least when I tune in, and it's not just the Graves. His Lee Sin actually has been super impressive mechanically on stream. It's not a champion that he was playing much of last season, so exciting to see him on another mechanical jungler.
Got a smile on his face after that lock-in, so he's clearly just fine. Crown could be going back to Cassiopeia, one of the classic Crown champions.
It's the only champion other than Victor that he has a win on this season, so where does that leave KT? They have the Lulu, expecting that to be mid lane, so theoretically they're only looking for a support, but we're always ready for that outside chance of a Poppy support.
I think it's coming, absolutely. I want to see, we are just going to see the Thresh more than likely. However, this is putting a big damage onus onto Arrow's Callista
Is
this
it
game.
though, Monty? Because you can build AD on Lee Sin. Yeah.
I would love to see that. Olaf blind picked him once again. Cube has preferred to blind pick the Olaf in the top side, and I hope it's a top lane Trundle. I really, really do. We've seen it a lot in the LPL.
I think we need Trundle in general just because the burden is on Callista. Anything to amplify damage is super important when you're going for the fairly low damage comp. Of course, the game is played at the pace of the previous game. Lulu's damage doesn't fall off by 23 minutes, so Lulu can be a decent damage dealer in the mid game, but let's wait till 20 seconds. That's when we will see the final swap. There is an outside chance we will see the debut of support Poppy, but then no guarantee. This is actually always a matchup that was one of the best ones for against Poppy, just because, of course, Poppy used to have her old passive, and true damage from Olaf meant that he could boss around this lane. I was speaking to some analysts about good lane matchups into Poppy, and the first one, even with all the changes that strung to my mind, was the Olaf.
Well, I mean, even with the changes to her passive, she still has a lot of that damage mitigation left over, so the true damage is still going to be strong.
Is going to be the Poppy, so no Trundle, top lane.
All right, well, Someday it certainly delivered on that pick in the last game, does have that different matchup. Cube, really the only player here in Korea who likes to blind pick that Olaf, despite it being a perfectly acceptable blind pick in the current meta. No speed buff for him this time. He's going to have to be running it on his own, and he does have Flash instead of Ghost with that teleport.
Notably, the only other Korean, of course, not in Korea but over in Europe, is Gamsu, who also is liking the Olaf. I think this matchup might be good. I'm really excited to see another data point of Olaf versus Pop.
Well, here you go, Papa Smithy. Your wishes will be answered shortly, as long as we don't get a lane swap. But I think that KT is going to want that lane swap again. They opted for it last time into that Tristana. So let's get into game 2 right now. KT versus Samsung. Cheers from the crowd. KT versus Samsung, game number 2. And getting right back into this one. So, as you can see, Score and Mad Life, of course, the longest tenured players here in Champions. That's why they are at the front of that player pyramid. It is, the players are ordered in sequentially and chronologically to when they join Champions from front to back.
That's why Ambition right up the front. Of course, when the first full season of Champions began, Ambition was in the lineup, but didn't play in that preseason tournament.
Yeah, Wolf and Bang also very far up there because they were actually Najin subs. Now, they didn't play, but they were on the substitute roster. Very interesting.
I don't know about that. Maybe they just needed some spots like you guys qualify, sort of.
No, they did. They did. Oh, you mean you don't know about the just being substitutes and not playing the pro game? Fair enough. But they are up at the front there because they were officially registered onto the Najin Shield roster way back when.
So KT did get that ward in, but of course with the difference in timers, there's less time to react. Whether they wanted a lane swap or not, which is heavily suggested by their warding, KT does not get that lane swap.
Yeah, they are going to start Sentinels too, so they'll know exactly what is going on here.
But Arrow's trying to solo stop the Krugs.
With a W start too, and he does chase them off by himself. Yeah, very important. I'm actually surprised that Samsung wanted to back off that.
Didn't have vision of that Tri-Brush, so respected the fact that Hachani might show up, but even then, level 1 Trundle's not exactly Alistar when it comes to
You see
things happen.
You see W start on Ballista, and I think maybe you keep doing those Krugs.
No Krugs allowed. Open season on the Krugs for so much of this season, but hold off as level 2 is achieved.
Wow, and they actually force a
They're not
flash right
done.
there. They're all in. And the nice thing about starting level 2 is you do have good trade damage if your support is around, but you have to commit really hard. So Achani with the pillar does actually force the AD carries flash.
Because Achani actually got shared experience as far as we can tell on the Grom. It was notable that, again, you should have internalized if you're Samsung. The Arrow didn't actually have the Ren to pick up that kill because he started level 1 W, but still got the respect flash nonetheless.
Really weird start to the 2v2 in this game for sure.
So what's your take on the Cassiopeia versus Lulu? Because it seems like, just like the Victor matchup, there's a lot of downside here unless you get heavy jungle camping in the middle.
I mean, it's going to be obviously very safe early because you have the shield there to block the damage over time, so you're not going to be too terribly worried about a lot of the poison damage as long as you don't take a lot of follow-up E's, but even then, you have Whimsy to get away.
And that's my worry is on Cassio's side, is that the downside of this matchup is, of course, lack of wave clear, especially relative to the Lulu. And just like the Victor matchup, unless you can get some kill pressure, and always hard to do, and the moment you say kill pressure on a Lulu, you're probably doing it wrong. Feels like if they play around this Cassiopeia, obviously a very easy champion to gank, just fairly immobile, could be worrying times, especially if Lee Sin starts to get creative around the mid lane.
It's up to score. However, Fly does take the TP and not going to have as much. Crown has the Ignite. I just think that you're not going to get a lot of kill pressure here from the Lulu, clearly, but you are going to get some decent wave clear. And from Crown's perspective, he's going to get a chance to stack his tier and get those Cassiopeia stacks rolling. There's not a lot of threat on him either. So if he's confident in his positioning in the late game, if they can make it that far, they should be pretty tough to deal with, because certainly Samsung has a very powerful late game composition with Olaf and Tristana and Cassiopeia. They should have that big advantage if they can hold out long enough.
I feel like a lot of the late game relies on how tanky and strong Cuvée can get, because Crown and Stitch are definitely going to be fighting on the back lines. Cassiopeia struggles to get that damage in. You can't really follow up on Olaf if you're Cassiopeia, unless, of course, people are coming in to use. So Olaf needs to get super tanky. Cuvé's overextended.
Yeah, he is. Does have flash. Score just going to sit here. Has the Raptor buff, so knows he hasn't been seen by Cuvée. But backs off minion wave coming in at an unfortunate angle, so he's not going to be able to land a Q easily.
Flash E is the only way that I can see someday actually being able to set anything up. So Score buffers that back a couple of times and eventually fully channels it.
Gets the Scuttle Crab, gets the vision and the protection there. At the very least, someday able to push up freely and start to roam here into the mid lane, and Crown is dangerously overextended right here, and there's the W. Popped, Crown just gonna get knocked back immediately. Goodbye, Someday finds a kill in the mid lane as Crown playing a little bit sloppy right there. He had the ward in the river, and he did not expect Someday just to show up.
Speaking of wards, just no indication from Cuvée about where Someday was going. I mean, he hadn't seen Score, so he didn't need to be deathly afraid of that brush, but expected Poppy enough not to walk in there. Didn't have any wards down the river, and just really smart play from Someday. This is what separates him from some other top laners. He can make super intelligent roams when he needs to.
Yeah, and he made a decision there, falling behind in terms of CS, but as long as he gets the first blood, that gold isn't going to matter.
He actually still hasn't backed, neither of the top laners have, just casually walks up to top. Both have all their summoners. 18 CS is the disadvantage, but getting a kill makes up for a lot of that. It's about even in terms of gold, but the pressure it puts on Crown in particular is massive. Even though Crown didn't actually blow a summoner, realized he was dead.
Yeah. Just took it in stride. Saved that summoner for the next time on a gank that maybe he could escape. Stitch and Wraith have stabilized in the bottom lane. Meanwhile, Score
just spotted now.
Yeah, he's going to get seen, and Cuvée backs off to the safety of his own turret. Crown decides it's time for a pink ward on this side, and that's where he's going to be standing, avoiding any more possible ganks here, as he did see Score make an about face and could have been headed back down his direction.
Nice hit by Polv onto Arrow. This is going to be trade damage. Big trade win, though, for Samsung.
So far, a little bit of more hop damage. They're going to get a rend off. But still, yep, definitely a much better trade. And that's what we expected in this 2v2. They tried to counterpick this lane. They fell behind a little bit early. Fly actually has to use his ultimate right there.
Crown had also ulted, that's why it went so low. Cuvée, Sunday's trying to look juicy, but for now, not enough.
Wow, Score really trying to push Sunday's advantage. He has been hovering around this top lane consistently, and now Sunday has been able to close that CS gap just a little bit, but Cuvée going to turn it right back around. It'll remain about 10 ahead, about 12 ahead actually.
Gonna have to be a damage gank. If Score had level 6, I think they could have brute forced a kill because Ragnar wouldn't have been enough to dissuade all the damage, but when he's full health, very, very hard lane to gank his top.
So, we saw somebody buy a Giant's Bell, resell it for 2 Ruby Crystals and a Cloth Armor, so going with the components to start things off. You're trying to get as many raw stats early as possible rather than just picking up the flat HP.
Dead Man's Plate and probably Banshee Veil, or at least some Magic Resist coming through is the likely pickups for Someday, but looks like Iceborne Gauntlet just not really fitting in. The Ruby Crystals are very important against the true damage from Olaf. If you're Poppy, you're going to be trading in melee range, so you're going to be eating those true damage swings from Olaf, so health very, very important in the matchup.
Dragon has begun here. They know Tristana has gone back, and this is going to be pretty easily taken. Score building into that Warrior Gen, so we are going to see the aggressive Lee Sin build.
Was there ever any doubt, Monty?
No. No, there wasn't. Score wants to carry this game, and he's going to get that opportunity to.
I actually really want to see the skill order from Olaf, just as I was mentioning before, because Poppy's so fiercely melee range. This is one matchup where you could be forgiven for going Reckless Swing. He's still maxing the arrow. Yeah. So the axes. Yeah. The one thing that gives him is wave control. So your options are try to kill the Poppy in trades or just push in the Poppy. And going for the safer of the two choices with the Q.
Oh, Fly actually ults himself preemptively. Hachani is caught out, and guess what? Stitch is there. He's going to get Fates called back though and saved, but now he's on to Stitch on the side. Someday is teleported down into the bottom lane, and there goes Stitch blasted against the wall, and Fly now on the pursuit. Wants to get another glitter, lands onto Crown. Nope. Decides to turn around instead. Stitch falls, no one dies on the side of KT, but Someday here is on to Ambition, and Someday is just everywhere. Comes back with the buckler swing from his auto attack to finish the kill. Krugs giving him a helping hand, but Someday has just been everywhere this game.
Just Poppy things, Monte Cristo, and he didn't even ult. He didn't need to.
That man, big misplay. KT
he's not done.
Yeah, he's not done. KT with the TP disadvantage, and Wraith now, you are in the air. What a knock-up. Arrow gets that one. Someday walk out with the, I don't know what that is on his head.
This is the part in solo queue where you say, can you please control your lane? This Poppy's everywhere except top.
Well, I mean, he's just farming champions right now. He's already 2-0-2 in 10 minutes. He doesn't care about CS, but man, that all-in from Samsung was a total disrespect of the teleport possibilities from Someday. Cuvée will try and close this gold gap with the help of a tower, so actually the trade ends up being somewhat even.
Well, in terms of map pressure, in terms of the snowball and other lanes, even in terms of the kill score Someday's put together, the gold lead's only 1,000, but the pressure specifically created only by Someday. Someday has literally been doing Score's job for him this game.
Score, 0 successful ganks. I mean, Someday, 100% kill contribution.
0-0-0 jungle Lee Sin. So question marks at both the enemy top laner and the friendly jungler this game.
I love it. Meanwhile, I like how Someday has successfully killed everyone in this game except his lane opponent.
I really hope he took the Bounty Hunter Mastery, which gives you a % extra damage for every unique person you kill. Only going to have 2% at the moment, but clearly could get quite high if he keeps being unleashed on the map with the Swifties.
Oh, I'm just sad he's not going Iceborne first this game.
I mean, against an Olaf in particular, that'll be a huge disrespect. If he maxed Reckless Swing, you'd take 1/3 of your damage every 4 seconds.
Flat HP, definitely much
Here
more
we
useful.
go again.
Here comes Someday, and Lulu's going to follow him around. Crown here, trying to slither his way out, but I'm sorry, he's going to get actually the stun on to Someday. He does live. Cuvée is here. He TP'd into die, maybe. Quite low, doesn't actually do anything with that teleport. The damage was well loaded up front. And that means KT just walks away at the end of that gank. They don't get a kill, but Crown and Cube heard it. They got 2 ults, a flash, and a teleport though, and that'll be enough. Arrow just going to keep free farming at the bottom side, and thanks to Sunday's roams, he's actually started to put together a rather impressive CS advantage.
Honestly, Samsung, the big question mark is how does he keep getting unchecked through this top side of the jungle? There needs to be wards, there needs to be defensive vision. The double pink wards were cleared out, but there needs to be some sort of safe information because Sunday's completely just shutting down Crown in the mid lane, and there's just little recourse for Crown in particular. He just keeps getting caught out.
Man, it's been a while since we've seen a top lane carry performance this hard in the early game. Sunday is just a monster on the map right now.
It was actually a mechanical misplay from Score during that whole fight in the mid. Crucially, Score went for a max range Q instead of just safeguarding onto the Poppy to hit a much shorter range one. That would have been a certain kill, so Score still watching on as the game is played around him.
It's all right, he doesn't need to be there. Sunday's taken over 2 positions this game. His TP's almost back up for more fun times. He has not completed a item yet. Instead, just going for the Sheen. It's damage time. Got enough raw stats. Switching gears here. There's the Spooky Ghost coming out of the mid lane. Fly now in Ward Wars in the river, but doesn't get the final hit before the pink ward is destroyed by Crown. But Crown's still taking a hell of a lot of poke here from Fly.
Well, he has no magic resist or very little from runes, so Abyssal Scepter's hard for Cassiopeia to itemize into just because she has to rush into the tier and then be a massive damage drop to also go into a Negatron Cloak. Score's like, I need kill involvement now.
He's gone from 100 to 0%, Papa Smithy.
Yep.
Clearly limited in his champion pool. Is him not working out.
This time.
Samsung also targeted him super hard.
They really did.
All right, Sunday back in his dueling ways. Cube not too perturbed yet.
I like how we have no information on Poppy versus Olaf because they've never been in the same lane.
Sunday just noped right out of there and started killing Crown.
Usually that's when you're in a super counter matchup where I need to make plays on the map to be relevant. Instead he's just like, well, I'm just going to go and make this work in the mid. Make it work he has.
His ambition still lurking around the backside. He's going to knock up scores. He comes in with his Q. Don't have a lot of pink wards to place right now.
He's coming.
He is. Time to threaten this Cassiopeia a little bit more. Just waiting to see if they're going to engage. He can always come around the side, recalling in the meantime. Fly will let loose with a few autos.
You gotta say, you gotta wonder about Ambition's pathing. That Tremor Sense also hasn't been enough to stop all these wraparound ganks in the mid.
I mean, Score has been up there quite a bit though, just waiting for some counter ganks or trying to slow down Cube. Cube now is 40 CS up though, so the price has been paid really. Cube not actually too far behind individually on the Score.
And worth noting that in other lanes, despite having the pressure advantage, they haven't been able to build any CS advantages with some days roam. It's only a small 15 or so CS advantage for Arrow in the bot lane.
That's why we see the gold getting so even here. Also the fact that Samsung did respond with a turret. So in spite of Sunday's very impressive performance, Samsung is actually holding in there pretty well.
And that's worrying. If Samsung has shown one thing is that if they can hold on to the late game, they can make impressive decision making in that late game, especially against Longzhu in that game 2 that I honestly wrote off at 35 minutes, but they rode it out to 50, 55 and managed to win with a superior teamfight comp. And the thing you can't deny is that Samsung's damage in the late game, while range sensitive specifically on the Cassiopeia, if Crown plays out of his mind, they should be able to take these late game teamfights.
On paper, certainly with a stronger comp. And we see the Deadman plate finished out from Sunday, and Cube just continues to push forward. He's trying to contain Sunday in that top side now that he has the turret down, and he is shutting down some of these roams. Uh-oh, Ambition at Wraith actually caught behind the Pillar of Ice, but there isn't a follow-up, and Johnny might have to be Fates called here. Nope, not going to go in. Score is actually in the backside. He's going to W over, and that was a fancy little kick right there, actually. Combination kick and rocket jump, so that means that Stitch will fly over the wall into safety.
His score, the only way he could guarantee get Stitch in the right decision was to kick flash. He didn't want to expend the flash there. So
no, certainly not worth it at this point in time. Especially when Stitch still has his flash up too. There's a safer place you can make. Achani here. There's a nice force flash onto Arrow from Ambition. They also forced the ultimate out of Hachani onto Rek'Sai.
Arrow didn't have the luxury.
Uh-oh. Ambition again knocking out the Lee Sin out of the Q follow-up, so no resonating strike. They're going to take out that damage. Another Q tossed over the wall, but Ambition here really doing a good job of controlling the bottom side of the map, and now they have their eyes on the first dragon of the game for Samsung.
It's pretty hard to out-duel a Rek'Sai as a Lee Sin just because of the unburrow, cancelling out your resonating strike, and good control jungling from Ambition. Vindicates the focus onto score, but Someday has spared the blushes of Score's fairly absent early game with some roams of his own.
Still that slight lead for KT, but they need to transition this pressure to something else. They've got to get a turret. However, Cuvée has been tenacious in his defense at the topside tower. And Someday just doesn't have that same wave clear as a max rank Undertow.
Not the consistent rotations either. Of course, you can just pick up your axe, whereas Poppy has decent wave clear, but again, a bit more cooldown reliant.
Time for some more Rift Herald has been, throughout the course of the season so far, one of KT's favorite objectives to go for. They seem to prioritize it higher than just about any other team.
See if they give it to Score as they have been.
Nope, it's always Score's buff. It's never anyone else's.
Well, he is the oldest player on the team, so he probably gets to make those decisions. My buff.
I'm the shot caller. I'm the veteran.
Honestly, the movement speed for ganking might have been more useful for Someday, given how this game's gone.
So now Samsung uses that Rek'Sai ultimate to try and contest a blue buff here. Everybody back at the moment. Now 2 TPs up. That's going to be a very, very fast blue buff steal. Ambition gets it. He's caught behind the Pillar of Ice, but there we go. Arrow going to chuck him over the wall. There's Someday once again coming in with the TP. Cuvée coming in from the side too, but there is Score. And now KT Rolster on the retreat. They kick Wraith backwards. However, Someday getting low. Arrow there. And there's a great ultimate from Cassiopeia. This is going to be a big team fight win for Samsung. They're piling in under the turret right now. How far are they going to go? Ambition starts to tank it up, and Chani is going to be low alongside Fly. Fly just trying to recall right now and prevent the ace. They're gonna come in the end, and now Samsung on a 4-for-1 trade. Fly attempts to escape through the enemy jungle, but that was a very nice Cassiopeia ultimate from Crown.
A really good play from the Cassiopeia. Stitch can catch out Fly. Does he have enough damage to take him out though? Looking likely. No, Fly's gonna run away.
Too much whimsy.
When we see the replay, there was a really nice flash on Burrow from Ambition as well after that initial play from Crown to confirm the extra kills, but that's one of those fights that Cassiopeia does excel in. It's in this narrow choke specifically. So we'll track Crown at the start. Again, basically solo kills Hachani. They have to use the wild growth onto Hachani. Yeah. But we're waiting for that big ult coming through. Really nice ult, but also the flash unburrow into the backline meant that in these narrow corridors where you can't easily dodge things like the poison stacks from Cassiopeia, kills are easy.
Also, the Poppy ult was used onto an ulting Olaf, so it didn't do anything right there. Someday definitely trying to disengage, but Cuvée already in the Ragnarok, which meant it had absolutely no effect onto Samsung as he just instant channeled it through it behind him.
So there you go, a win to Samsung. It's the first team fight win they've had all series. Still only slightly ahead in gold and actually behind in the kill score, but that's definitely the sort of spot KT need to avoid fights in, is any narrow area where Cassiopeia's damage. In a long lane like this, very hard to get those Twin Fang trades in, but so many things went wrong. Fighting in bad terrain and also having to use the wild growth emergency onto the Trundle, who also flashed away defensively. Got no value out of the suite of utility from Fly, and Samsung pick up an easy team fight win.
Yeah, KT opted into that too because they yanked Trundle up to the high ground out of the river and then immediately pitched him back in with the Fate's Call. So they could have certainly just disengaged from that entire scenario. Now QV is here and trying to put down the pressure, spamming those axes into the mid lane. The wave clear starting to falter a little bit.
They need to really bring Stitch over to the mid lane, though. The siege of the other champions here is desperately poor, so need Stitch to get any realistic turret damage. It looks like it's going to draw someday out of top, though.
Yeah, just got the Hurricane, however, with her arrow, so they are going to at least have slightly better wave clear than they did previously.
Someday going for a walk, as he's been doing most of this game.
He actually, remarkably, is caught up in CS to now only -10 after being 40 down at certain points.
Has to worry, though. He is very susceptible to magic damage, has stacked on the armor, a little bit of HP, but largely armor. With that second Ruby Crystal, though, most likely to be some magic resistant coming.
Almost certainly. They're just back off right now. Arrow's job has become the wave clear in the mid lane now that they have this 2-item Callista. So KT still able to play around double teleports for Someday and for Fly. They have a split push. It's not the greatest split push in the world, but it is an option.
Crown, I think, really needs to pick up the distortion boots. Seems like it's going to be very flash reliant for any sort of engage. Honestly, the Miracle Cassiopeia ult is honestly their true initiation option. Obviously, Alistair can do it, but often isn't in position to do so, and Olaf doesn't really have the CC to back up his strong initiation. They have no Orianna Olaf synergy here, so feels like Crown's flash is going to be pretty much a cornerstone to a one-team fight, unless they can monopolize an objective like Dragon or Baron.
And wow, Score has gone for Black Cleaver this game, as aggressive as you can be on this Lee Sin.
I like how he didn't snowball, yet still got the snowball item. He's like, no kills, doesn't matter. Build and damage. Relying on Poppy and Trundle to be the front line, which I think is pretty fair.
Yeah, with one turret here, KT could actually equalize this gold score, and they're trying to finally just push QV off the top lane so they can take their first turret of the game. With all the damage they are bringing up, and then, wow, they're actually just going to leave this turret to die, though, so really poor trade from KT. They moved so many people up, but there's no protection in the mid lane.
Lulu wasn't there. Lulu was just split pushing the bottom lane, so communication seems to be an issue, and Samsung aren't done just yet. Of course, they have to back away the moment they see Achani.
That was a bit of a breakdown right there. They didn't need to commit so many people to the top side to pick that up. And now they lose a mid turret and a blue buff to Samsung, who
Dragon spawns just now as well.
See an opportunity, and no one's in position, like you said, for the Dragon either. So Samsung massively benefiting off a poor rotation from KT.
And Samsung, if they can get Dragon or Baron control, you need to run into the Cassiopeia. You need to run into that short-range damage or that very punishing AoE stun. Very strong team fight. But think about the other situation. If Samsung ever fall behind in objectives, Olaf's going to run in. Obviously very good at that with the Ragnarok. Instantly Trundle will ult him if he's not out of position like he was so horribly around the Dragon. Take him down, very different fight. So objectives this game are really important for Samsung to have a reliable way to pick the team fights they definitely are looking for.
Oh, they're doing a good job of controlling the vision in the bottom side jungle at least. Ambition here popping his Raptor buff to start dealing with some of these wards in the top side river. They can really start threatening the Baron now. Have the Scuttle Crab, and they have the Tristana 2 items complete, working on the Blade of the Ruined King. And so they will be able to take down the Baron really fast with this composition, meaning that KT has to start getting concerned.
Cassiopeia with blue, Blade of the Ruined King on Tristana. We're talking about a 12 to 15 second Baron take, so no downtime allowed in windows around there.
Mission pushed out Stitch, just for some reason all on his own in the top side, and now Someday going to force a TP out of QV. Score is here, he wants to finish it off. There's the kick and the combo, and that Lee Sin does a lot of damage. Fly now coming around the side. Ambition, the next target, gets hit by the Frost Queen's Claim. QV completed his port, and Someday is on the run. Ragnarok has already been used. It's going to fall off and force the flash immediately, and there we go. Someday coming in, but they're in a choke point. They have to be careful about this Cassiopeia right now. Achani splitting off. Fate's Call going to be launching them back onto Crown and Ambition. They're diving the turret right now. They still want this arrow, trying to get as much damage out. 3-man Cassiopeia ult though, a knock-up comes through, and are they going to get another one? Yes, Ambition gets a second knockup, but they just don't have the follow-up damage. Ambition barely living, and that is a 1 for 2, surprisingly in favor of Samsung, and we see lots of flashing red.
It might have even been an overall 2 for 2, but KT just over-pursued so hard under the turret. If they had had that outer mid-turret down, this would have been a great fight. Crown held onto his ult. At first it looked like too long, but KT are just never happy. They keep going in. Score kept fighting. They keep fighting so aggressively around this very healthy outer turret, and in the end they get punished for it.
Ambition played that really well, though. Tunneled under and then comes back in for a flash on Burrow. Looks like there may not be enough follow-up damage, however, everybody else too low. And they do, in the end, just lose Stitch, and they kill 2 on the side of KT. So another favorable trade for Samsung, and KT pursues that. So far, they can't even take the mid-turret as a result.
Just relentless with the bloodthirstiness of diving that turret when it didn't look like they really needed to. They could have just regrouped and pushed down with superior numbers. That pesky outer mid-turret. Ragnarok's going to time out soon.
Yeah, Cuvée out of position. Someday here keeping pace alongside him, and there's that auto attack. And goodbye, Cuvée. You are done with here, as Someday will receive the kill credit. Samsung going to try and black out the vision on Baron and at least threaten that in the interim, but there's another turret, and this one goes down for KT. They're ahead in kills still, and they even up the gold with the turret.
They didn't have teleport on Lulu, but otherwise Someday could have reacted to any plays around Baron, so risky, very, very risky to try and take down Olaf when both Cassiopeia and Tristana are on the same side of the map as Baron, but in the end, don't pay for it.
Yeah, and they're making the plays around the Olaf without the TP right now, and it's working out. They forced out some pretty poor Ragnaroks 2 times in a row now. They get the kill on the second attempt.
Someday's found his champion to blind pick. They want to take his other speed. He goes fairly heavy on the damage. Again, good synergy between Steric's Gauge and the Iceborne Gauntlet. Light on the magic resist, but play around that, and so far so good for Someday.
Yeah, he's got the Spirit Visage incoming, though, with the Kindle Gem. They're finally going to complete a big MR item. And Arrow just been this holding force with the Runin's Hurricane in the mid lane, and they're still just trying to finish off this turret. Wraith doing a good job of defending, but it's finally going to fall as Arrow pops over. Someday just zoning everybody out, and there's a TP actually canceled right there for Fly.
It was actually really good lane assignments. They had Lulu with teleport, split pushing against a no teleport Olaf, and then they were pushing aggressive in mid. That's really good team play from KT. On a different level to some of their poorer decisions earlier in this game, and they finally got that objective.
Guess what? Another defensive Ragnarok forced out by Someday, who comes in from the side, angling for the heroic charge. And here we go again. Ambition in the jungle does get kicked around. Arrow is still there. He's got the Rend. He's going to use it, and there's the finisher. Score comes in, but the Ignite takes it. Score dies to Crown's poison, actually. They're still going hard, though. Stitch found in the backline. Double kill now for Hachani in support. Now Arrow still getting a lot of spears in. Crown the next of all. A triple kill for Hachani. Arrow picks up kill number 4, and that is an ace, courtesy of Someday underneath the turret. We were getting dangerously close to a support pentakill right there.
I'm not sure Someday was taking damage at all during that turret dive, but yet a support pentakill would have been something else. The result, though, that fight was started off by an amazing pillar from Hachani, so maybe he deserves the triple because he actually pillared Ambition out of the burrow, couldn't get out defensively, it interrupted it, nice re-engage. Score gives up his life, but the follow-up and just how tanky this lineup is when the Lulu shows up means that KT pick up a big team fight win.
Yeah, I love the way they just keep continuing.
Watch the traffic going really, really big to stop Ambition getting out, and although Score takes the second Q and gives over the trade, wait for the re-engage here from KT.
I mean, it was a good ult from Crown, too, to try and take that, but Stitch couldn't find his way underneath the turret.
Stitch was perma-CC'd and died.
Yeah, Crown, too, just taking knock-up after knock-up right there from the Lulu ult and then the ultimate from Poppy.
The range from the Poppy E into just the Fate's Call is just ridiculous. There was no time whatsoever for Stitch to do anything. Couldn't W because, of course, the heroic charge was active. More Poppy things coming out on the Rift, Monty.
Someday lost his 100% kill contribution score, Papa Smithy.
What a terrible game. It's all over for Someday.
I'm disappointed.
Back to stacking that armor, get that slow field, even more CC and disruption.
We had questions about Crown, but Crown is actually doing pretty well on the Cassiopeia overall. He's kept up with Fly, and even though his team has been losing, he has hit some quite nice ultimates in terms of the disengage. It's mostly been Stitch and Cuvée caught out of position on the map that has really turned this game back to KT's favor.
KT have certainly not played around Cassiopeia at all. They've opted into fights in bad terrain, good terrain. They've just been looking for fights, and despite the super aggressive build, well, I guess because of the super aggressive build, just betrays that KT are looking for scraps wherever they can get them. With all the mobility of these champions, Crown can only do so much.
Yeah, Someday actually gets onto Crown, does sidestep that ultimate, now gonna knock him up. Can he finish off the kill right here? They're gonna target down Someday. Someday with wild growth on him though, does escape for the moment. That's going to be Arrow actually falling at the start of this fight. All their carries are starting to go down. Fly on the flank. Score still trying to escape Ambition. Trying to follow up under this turret, and Someday is going to get targeted, tries to slow them with the Iceborne Gauntlet, and he does, but is this going to be a Baron now for Samsung? They get a catch out in the mid lane, and they turn it into several kills.
Target selection was super good from Samsung. That's the one thing Cassiopeia does, incredible single target damage. They just focused down whoever she was slowing with the Rylizer. Now it's time for the Score Miracle play, or it's going to be Baron for Samsung.
Well, he's got the damage. They do have Fly here too. Are they going to come in? They're going to try and get it. He's going to get popped out of the pit though, and Flash, and Ambition will secure it. Cuvée doesn't die, and they're going to pick up Score too. Big
win for Samsung. Suddenly, the gold lead that had been built up by taking down this mid lane inhibitor is almost completely gone. Only 2,000 between the two. Messy engage from KT. They've been so looking to scrap that this time they chose the wrong time to fight.
Big credit to Crown though, again in that last fight, putting down the necessary damage. And in spite of that early death for the first blood,
look
Crown
where
is...
Lee Sin and Lulu are when this fight starts. They're nowhere near. They don't even have an opportunity to get in. Okay, Lulu channels the teleport, but Lee Sin is a complete non-factor. And Crown, for the majority of this fight, can just single down the closest target. Smartly, Samsung turns onto these people, and they rack up the kills.
Cuvée too, on top of Callista instantaneously, the big threat onto the back line, and Arrow really doesn't have a chance. So with that major source of damage going down early, not much.
Arrow needed to go a similar item build that Stitch goes, actually, ironically, in Hysteric's Gauge, because Callista can do nothing when Olaf runs at her.
Yeah, that's a good point. Picking up Hysterics would probably be very useful right now. Can't finish her off quite as efficiently.
You can shred this diving Olaf, sure, with the Trundle. You can use the Black Cleaver, but Olaf can do so much damage to a no health.
KT really wants to fight, actually. They're pushing up. They're going to come in at Ambition. Score is there. Someday is here, too. They know there's no teleport onto Cuvée. Now they're going to start the fight immediately. Big knockups coming through once again. Stitch has Someday on top of him. Stitch is going to go down. Meanwhile, Ambition also low. They're going to clean him up. Cuvée finally gets into this fight, but has to ult to leave. Meanwhile, Wraith targeted by Score, so this has been such a bloody game so far. Someday on the pursuit. There's the heroic charge, feeding this Olaf back to the rest of his team, and there you go, dunking him. Crown comes back, but this is probably going to be the end here at 35 minutes.
When you see the replay, you will see something very unlikely, but it was actually Fly who won them this fight by using the polymorph onto Crown when he finally had a chance to use ultimate. Was complete non-factor in the fight after that. And you're right, the game's over.
Yeah, it is. There's one turret down. Too much damage coming down onto these turrets. It will be a 2-0 for KT. Samsung fights back in that game, but Someday puts on a hell of a performance on Poppy, and that's going to be a clean victory.
But what a change of pace for a Korean League of Legends game to be so fighting intensive. It felt like even when people were out of position, KT wanted to fight, they wanted to brawl, they wanted to show that the KT that we have in our minds, this slow, methodical, wave clear focused team, has another gear to them. And although it still needs a bit of refinement, it is still a 2-0 win over a Samsung team that I guess now is on the inevitable downtrod, facing tough opposition, but not matching their earlier performance.
Yeah, that's true, but at the same time, I think you have to give Samsung a lot of credit for being very far behind early, and Cuvée in particular making the most of the absence in the top lane of Someday to take the turret, get a big CS advantage. Even Crown playing quite well in some of those team fights in spite of giving up that first blood. So they definitely had some fight left in them even though they suffered that early game deficit.
Well, Samsung had interesting and innovative ideas last season, but it didn't really feel like they had the cattle on the field to actually take them to the next level. The lineup they have now has promise. Sure, they've made mistakes. Sure, they have some gaps, but they're finally getting to a point where they can start to push forward. And that's exciting just in itself for Samsung fans.
Yep, indeed it is. Well, KT, they bounced back from their loss to the Tigers last week.
The damage charts show that you were right about Crown. So much damage, 29,000 damage. The next highest is Poppy, ironically, at about 24,000.
Actually a little bit less, nearly 22,500 even, so definitely a big gap right there. Crown pulling his weight in that game, showing that he can play that Cassiopeia, but Samsung caught out a little bit too much there towards the end, and KT finds the picks they need to turn the game, even after Samsung is able to get that Baron.
I look forward to a series where KT can show both these gears in the same series. I want to see the wave clear, then I want to see this more pick-focused, pick the Poppy early, change the course of your draft. Is this just Fiora's ban, so this is our backup strategy, or is it the move to the Poppy pick? It's kind of hard to say. What KT looks like with both those champions off the board, that's still another question we don't know the answer to.
Well, I mean, the Fiora wasn't banned in this series, so just falling by the wayside, even though we saw that heavy priority on the pick from KT Rolster. The beginning of this season has fallen away. Now Poppy is what they're going to be going for. And with Sunday's performance on that champion, it is hard to argue. And to the surprise of no one, Sunday will be your MVP from that game. His roaming performance, getting a kill onto everybody except for his top lane opponent in the first 10 minutes of that game.
And look, it's a high bar, but the only time I can remember a laner having quite this impact on the team game in Korea was Dade on Twisted Fate about 2 years ago, I guess, almost at this point. But the fact that he could just leave lane so reliably and do Poppy things in chiefly the mid lane, but then impressively in the bottom lane as well, was amazing to see.
Just so sneaky. You do not expect the Poppy to be there.
And the bottom lane. Remember, Olaf's just taking a turret at this time.
You do expect the Poppy to be there for Wraith after he kills Ambition, but you don't. Ambition had no reason to believe that Poppy would be waiting in that brush.
And look, we were wondering about the Olaf versus Poppy lane matchup. Still have my hands up in the air at that one because there was no lane matchup. Someday was not interested in 1v1 in this Olaf.
Here we go, and Chani gets a triple kill. Crown tries to kite it out, has that face of the mountain. And
we talk about Poppy damage. I mean, when she's second in these damage charts, it lets you know that between the Q and I guess the Iceborne Gauntlet procs, just all the incidental damage seems to be higher than you'd expect for a disruptive champion like Poppy. So maybe a couple of tweaks will take out the damage side. The CC, though, it remains to be seen.
Someday, just all over Stitch's Tristana in the back line. Cuvée on the run, but Someday is running right past him and using that heroic charge to move him straight back into the team.
Poppy things.
Just Poppy things. And here we go, Nagne sitting alongside Arrow in that front row, coming back to see KT, his former team tonight. And we'll see where Nagne ends up after this season. In the meantime, we are going to go to an MVP interview with Score and Someday. And of course,